So, good evening, ladies. Have you got your cup of tea ready?
Got a cup of teas.
Excellent. So, welcome to Neuro Natters. My name's Steve, and today I'm going to be your host on this podcast, and we're going to run through really why we do what we do, and I'm going to introduce the team. So I'm going to go over to Jennet first, and welcome to Jennet to the podcast. And Jennet, just tell us a little about yourself. Why are you here, and what are you, what's the thing that floats your boat?
Well, it's a bit of a strange journey for me. I started off teaching deaf children the British Sign Language interpreter, which, as you can imagine, teaching deaf children to read when they can't hear the phonics was quite a challenge. So that made me look into more about dyslexia and dyslexia strategies, and would they help deaf children and what have you. Which then led me on to just because you're deaf doesn't mean to say you don't have other learning differences such as autism and ADHD and all the other things that go with that. And realised that, yeah, I was super duper around deaf stuff, but didn't know much about autism and ADHD, which increasingly I realised I needed to know about that. So I went on to be a Senko and manager resource provision, specialist resource provision for autism. And that transferred a lot of the communication skills that I'd learned with deaf children, really transferred really quite nicely with autism, with the social communication difficulty. Learned absolute masses and made many, many mistakes, which I absolutely learned from and thrive. And then started learning about dyspraxia and writing difficulties and maths difficulties, which made me think, need to do a little bit more here on that. So I then moved on to the work for the local authority to run their resource provisions across the city for autism, ADHD, SEMH, and what have you. And then went on to do a specialism in dyslexia, where I met my incredible friend Helen. And Helen and I were those awkward people on the course who kept asking the awkward questions
I
and
can
kept
imagine.
but why? But why? And what happens if? And yeah, we were those two people. We found we had our own common neuroisms and thought, well, we got along quite nicely, and with our different skill sets as well, that went really well together. So we created Dyslexia Test Centre, and very quickly realised that dyslexia is just a small proportion of somebody's profile, and we needed a more holistic approach. And that's where we're here today, and that's where me and Helen are at. So over to you, Helen.
Yeah, so my journey is probably a bit more boring compared to yours. So I did a biomedical science degree, got pregnant in the first term, which was never clever, and then tried to prove everyone wrong because everyone thought, just give up your degree, what are you doing? And I'm like, you can't tell me not to do it. So I then got my biomedical science degree. Um, and then I was a bit stuck because I had a 4-year-old, didn't know what to do. So I tried to work in a shop and no one wanted to employ me because I used to tell everyone I had a child and then that was it. You'd get nowhere with the interviews. And then I decided to go into teaching. So I ended up doing secondary science for many years. And then with that journey, there were so many children which were struggling. I kept thinking, why can't they read? They've been to school for 7 years. What's going on? How can I teach them science? So I then I had more children, so I've got four. And it got to the point where I was putting my kids in childcare and teaching others, and my kids weren't happy. So I decided to tutor, and that's when I kept seeing so many children which were struggling, math difficulties, just reading the whole lot, especially when it comes to 11 plus. And then my own children started to grow up and their own issues came out. Lots of neurisms I was not expecting. And then I started reflecting on that and maybe my own. And then always knew that I struggled and with the reading, the writing, attention and stuff, but didn't really think much of it. And then did the course for dyslexia. My husband was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And I was like, I really want to become a dyslexic assessor. And then, yeah, and then it's we decided we did this course, and then I kept delving in, and then I kept seeing my own children's issues come through with ADHD, autism, all that stuff, dyspraxia, you name it. And then we forged this amazing business where we do Dyslexia Test Centre. And then, yeah, we then decided to help people understand the way to go. Because to be honest, when you're struggling, you don't know where to start. You know your children's different. Mine very different from everybody else's. And you think you're the weird one. So it's just nice to say you're not. And welcome to the clan.
Lovely.
Absolutely.
Lovely. And I guess my journey, probably similar to yours too, really. I started off as a teacher, thought it was quite challenging, and I couldn't understand why some people would thrive and do really well, and some people you're having to drag through, kicking and screaming. And then I kind of realised my own struggles and thought, okay, well, I definitely know that there's something different with myself. And I think my neuro radar was kind of kicking off all over the place. And you get to that point of acceptance that, okay, this is just normal life. I'm going to find a way around it. And we build these wonderful skill sets, don't we, to mask and to hide and to kind of fit in. And then I realised that was exhausting. It was exhausting hiding. It was exhausting masking. And then I thought, I went to my doctor actually, and he said, "Oh, you're depressed." And I thought, that's a bit weird because I don't feel depressed. Not that I knew what depression was, but I thought that definitely doesn't feel like the right label. So then that started my journey into the world of mental health, because I thought we chuck around labels so quickly and so freely without the understanding behind the consequence of things. So I then became a mental health nurse. And then from that, it was still, no, this isn't fitting me quite right. I still need to find my lane. And then I started my master's in mental health nursing, so I was able to kind of assess and diagnose more. And then it was only recently, or last year, that I then did my prescribing qualifications, and I needed some adjustments at my uni, and I phoned up and met Helen, and then my neuro radar really kicked off.
Oh, you've not looked back.
And then it was like, oh, I'm home again. Everyone understands me. We're on the same wavelength. And it was that kind of brings us to now, which is, I think all of us have a personal journey. All of us feel at some point we haven't fitted in, or we've tried harder to fit in maybe, and we've all experienced that mental health dip, that exhaustion, the burnouts, and those rabbit holes that we fall down, which can just keep us in it forever, right?
I'm always down a different hole. I think every time I speak to both of you, I'm like, oh, how about this? Let's do this.
Absolutely. And I just think,
And the mental health spiral.
yeah, and the mental health spiral. And I think it's time we just normalize it. We bring this conversation forward. So I'm super excited about this podcast and this channel, because I think we're going to offer something different. We're going to offer our experiences from a professional level, from teaching right through to the mental health end. We've got that wonderful diversity amongst us. We cover that whole spectrum, don't we, of neurodivergent. So we're all going to bring something different to these discussions. And I think, Jennet was saying earlier off camera, she's been speaking to some people and they've got some wonderful ideas for things they want us to cover. So what were the things that people were saying, Jennet?
Well, it's a huge list. I'm only going to give you a few because it just could have gone on and on and on. But many people wanted to know, firstly, because there's a huge overlap with all the neurodiversity. And lots of people were saying that they were confused around autism and ADHD. What kind of overlaps were there? What differences were there? Sensory urgencies and understanding the differences in sensory integration and what that meant. Breathing techniques, could we offer any breathing techniques? Co-regulation strategies was a big one, not only for children and parents but for partners. Eating, lots of people want to know about eating and sleep. What sort of sleep hygiene should you use? Is it the same for each neurodivergent, or is there a difference that are we offering people the wrong advice? Lots of people are coming up at the moment. We seem to get clusters, don't we, Helen? Like lots of people at the moment are having you'll know the name of it, Steve. It escapes me just at the moment. But what is it when you don't have a visual memory, where you can't visualize? So you won't maybe have memories of your childhood and you can't
The
visualize.
dissociation, that dissociative part, kind of just blocking the memories out, or
Definitely, it will come to me, some sort of aphasia type thing.
yeah,
That people just cannot visualize, and we get people who hear sounds instead of phonics. That's an interesting one. Using technology, and I think with us, where we've got teaching backgrounds, we've got parent backgrounds, we've got mental health and professional backgrounds. I'm hoping there'll be the little nuggets that people can take away each week, whether it's through, oh, that's a good teaching strategy, or that's a good mental health technique, or yeah, that's a parenting issue, that, and hoping that through our very casual chat, that there will be little nuggets that people will find interesting and identify with. So you're not on your own.
You might want to email in, but if we get more followers, they might want to email and go, "Can you answer this?"
absolutely.
Oh, right to choose is a biggie as well. Lots and lots and lots of things. So keep, if people want to talk about it, bring it on the table. That'd be great.
Brilliant. And I think that if that's just come off a couple of conversations today, that was a brief list. We've got our work cut out, right? That's going to be a lot for us to get through. So I think it just leaves us to say, each week we're going to have different hosts. We're going to take it in turns. We're going to support each other. And yeah, that just really leaves me to say thanks for watching this week. And next week, we're going to be looking at really getting into the basics of what neurodivergency are, what they mean, and just looking at some of those basics. And we'll be sharing some of our experiences across the board. So until next week, everyone, look after yourselves. Thanks for watching and take care.
Been good to natter.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.